Hey, it's Kevin. Welcome to another edition of the video blog. Episode number 35. It's called The Wall of Sound. And this one actually goes out to my dear friend Jimmy Knight in Chicago, who commented on yesterday's blog, wondering whatever happened to my wall of tapes. And while I don't want this blog to become totally nostalgia, I think I have to talk about The Wall of Sound to kind of help, I don't want to say better explain who I am, but kind of talk about my musical journey in life. In 1976, I believe, maybe late 75, I got my first cassette tape, store-bought cassette tape, and I was off to the races. That was when I really started getting into music, really started collecting my own music. I never had a good stereo growing up as a kid. My parents had, the big hi-fi unit at home, and went to a smaller RCA turntable. But for some reason, even though I hung around radio stations for a long time, records just didn't connect with me. But because I was a very mobile kid, because I was always hustling around, because I got my first car at 16, the cassette really spoke to me, the portability of it. And I didn't have a great stereo for a long time, and to get my first good cassette stereo in the car, in my little Volkswagen Beetle, until a few years later. But I started collecting cassettes, and collecting, and collecting. And behind me is what's left of, I shouldn't say what's left of, is parts of the Wall of Sound in pieces. Jimmy worked for me in Bloomington, Illinois years back when he was just a young teenager, and came down from Chicago to work for me at WRXZ, the radio station I was running in Bloomington at the time. And when Jimmy would stay, he'd sometimes come over to the house, and he would see basically what was one of our spare bedrooms turned into almost a music store. It was actually my collection of cassettes. At the time, probably numbering close to 6,000, I would bet, and by the time it was all said and done, until I finally made the switch in the mid-90s to CDs when cassettes were almost impossible to find, I was up to like 6,500, 7,000. Well, imagine, if you will, a unit like this, and this is just a small part of the unit. There was actually these little things, they were called add-in stacks. They were little units that held 8 cassettes, and they interlocked together. Made by a company out of Eatontown, New Jersey. I found my first add-in stack, I think, in like a variety record store or something like that. And I would spend a lot of my spare time just cruising through record stores looking for new music. And when Tuesdays came around, I was out buying the new cassettes. Well, I amassed quite a cassette collection, and amassed literally hundreds of these add-in stacks. That I basically had 2 solid walls in maybe an 8x10 room. Floor to ceiling, cassettes, organized alphabetically, and then in terms of an artist, then in order of album release. It was an impressive sight, and I may have a picture laying around somewhere, I just couldn't find it. But behind me is some of the empty add-in stacks, some of the empty Wall of Sound. Sadly, when you move around as much as I did, as that thing started getting bigger, and I actually started doing that, I think when I got married the first time in 1985, and then moving from Virginia Beach to Charlotte to Huntsville to Bloomington to Indianapolis. Movers did not do a good job of helping move it. It wasn't easy to take apart after you got them together. The plastic of the add-in stacks got brittle. But it was quite an impressive collection for a long, long time. Sadly, when I made the move from Indianapolis to Akron, the movers broke a bunch of them, and I could never get them replaced. I tried to find if the company still made them, if they had the ability to remake the add-in stacks, and by that time it was long gone. The cassette era was over, and sadly it looks like so is my Wall of Sound. To answer Jimmy's question from yesterday, I still have most of them. They're disassembled in like this with a lot of dust down in my basement, and every cassette tape I own, all 7,000 store-bought cassette tapes, stored away in tubs in my basement, as I try to slowly but surely recreate my once massive cassette collection digitally. I never say the good old days, but man, it was quite a sight. I was pretty proud of that music collection. Now I just keep trying to recreate it digitally. I should get you the hard drive and show you the hard drive where most of that music is today.